Howdy, folks. It's Terry just jumping in before the show to let you know that the Instructor podcast is raising money for the charity break throughout Road Safety Week, which kicked off on November the 17th. Now, we're aiming to raise £1,683 in honour of the 1,683 people who lost their lives on UK roads in 2023. To donate, head over to www.theinstructorpodcast.com and you'll find a donate button at the top of the page. Thank you for your support.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
Welcome to the Instructor Podcast. This is a show that helps you become an even more awesome driving instructor. And as always, I am your slightly robust host, Terry Cook, and I'm delighted to be here, but even more delighted that you have chosen to listen because we are continuing Season 9, which is all based around technology. And who better to have as a sponsor for Season 9 than My Drive Time, the industry's premium award-winning business management app. Find out more at mydrivetime.co.uk. But on today's show, I am joined by Josh Holleran of Mirror Signal Podcast, and we dive into our top 5 online resources for driving instructors. Now, we do step away from some of the more obvious choices, but I'd like to advise you to take a look at some of our suggestions, especially the ones you haven't used previously. And you'll find links for all of those in the show notes. But just before we get stuck in, I want to take a moment to remind you that it is Road Safety Week on November the 17th. And this show goes live on November the 17th. So I'm going to encourage you to take part in that. And one of the ways you can do that is to raise money and raise funds. And you can donate directly through the Instructor Podcast link because we are trying to raise £1,683 for break. Because, unfortunately, that's how many people died as a result of traffic collisions in 2023. So we're going for that number. We're already 10% of the way there as I record this. So if you head to the website, www.theinstructorpodcast.com, at the top of that page, you'll find a button that says Donate to Break. So you could donate yourself, you could raise some money with your driving school, or you could just share this link and get other people donating. That'd be awesome. But I'd really encourage you to do something for Road Safety Week. But for now, let's get stuck into the show. So welcome to Terry's top 5 online resources for driving instructors. I'm delighted to be joined by the man who has been missing in action for quite a while, Mr. Josh Holleran. How are we doing, Josh?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Terry. Thanks for having me. I thought I'd been missing long enough to just be forgot by everyone, but here we are. I'm glad to be back. It's good to catch up with you.
Well, no, I was deciding to do this top 5 online resources because it fits really nicely in with this technology season. And I thought, who do I know that's spoken to lots of people, who will know lots of resources? And you obviously came into my mind, well, yeah, pretty close up to the top, if not the top. But what I will say before we get into this, I think we've both kind of agreed that we're not going to mention the Instructor Podcast or Mirror Signal Podcast within this, because I'm confident that you would have chosen the Instructor Podcast in your top 5, and also I would have chosen the Instructor Podcast in my top 5, so whatever. But I will just mention as well before we start that I think that we were talking about this before, and I don't think we can actually say this is the top 5. I don't think this is either of our top 5. It's maybe 5 of the best, or our kind of personal favourites rather than the top 5. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, when you messaged about this, I was like, top 5, easy. Then I started thinking about, right, well, what do we mention? Who do we mention? And the list was pretty big. So I've gone slightly different. I know we've spoke about it, and there's so many great people that you have on your show and that are doing great things for the industry. So I've done it slightly different. And I'm like, well, what do I use regularly as a driving instructor within my business? I was like, well, let's talk about them, and hopefully someone picks up something that can help them within their school and what they're up to.
Yeah. And I think I've just gone for 5 of my favourites. But again, if I'd wrote these on a different day, it may well have been a different 5. But just before we get stuck in, as I mentioned, you are the host, the creator, the founder of Mirror Signal Podcast in all its its incarnations. Officially a podcast now. When are we back? What's the plans? What's the future hold?
I did want to be back this month, to be honest, but as you know, it takes time to produce the episodes and everything that goes on behind the 1 hour episode that goes out there. So it's been delayed a little bit. I'd like to be back in the new year. I've got a few things that I need to sort out: life, children, business. So in answer to your question, I don't know. Soon, hopefully. I am missing it, and I'm glad to be here because I've missed this, chatting to people and just sharing ideas. So yeah, as soon as I can, hopefully the new year, but that doesn't really answer it. I don't know.
It's interesting to say that about life, because I can remember a little while ago I posted a past picture up on my TC Drive page, and I think I shared it on my personal page. And I think it was Lee Sperry who actually commented and said, "Oh, I forgot you're a driving instructor as well." Like, yeah, yeah, I enjoy doing this stuff. I'm not giving this up. But any other projects on the go, or why you've been in hibernation, if you like?
I'm doing a lot of studying at the minute for hopefully a standards check. I know I've mentioned it on my episodes a few times, and I think I might have mentioned it when I was on yours previously, that I want to get a standards check done and start working towards kind of training and helping people. So I'm doing a lot of studying at the minute, looking back at the competencies, the different publications that we use within the industry. And then one that's going to appear later on in my top 5. I've been working with Dr. Julia Malkin quite a lot on that project. So we'll go more into that a little bit later. And just getting back to driving lessons, because that's what pays the bills. And I had a lot of bills that need paying.
As we do. Let's get stuck in then. So what is your first item within this top 5?
So my first one, I've gone straight in because I'm using this all the time. And that's an app called Canva. And it might be a little bit out there for some people, but I'm using that for a lot of my social media posts and logos and pictures that I'm putting out there to help grow my school. Yeah, I'm on it quite a lot, and I think it's great. It's free. And if you're sat there wondering how you can promote your school, get more students, maybe design a new logo without having to go and pay someone or find a graphic designer, I think it's just easy to use, free, quick, and it gives you content to put out and get yourself out there as an instructor.
It's interestingly, we're talking beforehand about we won't have any of the same. Well, I've got Canva on my list. But I will just mention for the listeners, because these top 5s usually go in my premium episode, but I thought it tied in quite nicely with a text. So, a lot of people won't have heard these before. We don't know each other's top 5, so we kind of find them out as we go. But I agree. I think Canva is such an underutilized resource, and it is free, like you said. I would advise anyone, if they've got the money, to use the paid version, because there's a lot more available. But there's so much stuff in there, whether it's just creating an image, whether it's changing your past picture. So you want to put your past picture up, you can get them in Canva, you can get, like you say, your logo on there, you can personalize it so it looks like unique to yours. And there's a few people out there that do this, and they just stand out a bit more. You can use it to create presentations. So, all right, I appreciate most instructors won't use that feature, but it comes up from time to time. Or if you're wanting to do something with a theory or something for your students, you can use it in there to create that. There's, as I say, there's videos we can do. There's also got AI, so it can generate AI images and AI videos for you, which is quite good. So yeah, I think this is a great show, and it's one that I use a lot as well. I'm probably every day I'm doing something on Canva, even if it's just tweaking one of my my podcast covers to change a title or something and then put that out. But I think every day I'm on Canva. What do you reckon you use it for most?
So I used it with my podcast for all of the thumbnails over on YouTube. Go check it out. I use it, like you said, I don't use it for past photos specifically. I use the picture that's there. But what I do, I take a couple of photos and I'll create an image to go on Facebook. And I'll use that then with whatever offer I'm running or that there's driving lessons available. And it's just every image can be unique. And like you say, you can create your own brand with it. So I use it a lot for that. And another thing that I've been using is we sometimes feel like we don't have content. I'm like, what can I post about? I need some students, but I keep posting the same thing. So what I'll often do if I'm struggling for content is I'll go back through my reviews and I'll either screenshot and put it in an image or I'll copy and paste the review. I don't know how the algorithms work on social media, but if I put it on a different image and it's not the same thing copy and pasted every week. So I'm using it almost daily to promote my driving school, to create logos for like when I was doing the podcast and creating that, I was on Canva tweaking different things. If you go back through my Facebook page far enough, you'll see all the different logos and thumbnails that I trialed before I got to the one that I was kind of happy with now. So yeah, logo design, creating images for promoting my school and putting text on a different format than just a random screenshot or whatever it is, just to make it look different and stand out for when I'm promoting the business.
Yeah. And we're coming to a specific time of the year. We're coming to the time of year when it's bad weather, it's Christmas, kind of notorious, if you like, aspects of the year. So this is perfect for Canva. So whether you're taking a picture and uploading it to Canva and then putting some text around it, or whether you're using the Canva to get the image of snow, for example, that makes your social media look better. So you can get that image of the bad weather, again, whether you're using your own photo and tweaking it, whether you're getting one from Canva and then put your written post around it, that looks better than just a written post with someone taking a picture out of a car window a lot of the time. You can make these things look snazzy, you can make them stand out. And yeah, if everyone started doing this, then everyone's on an even playing field. So it kind of takes away that aspect of it, of making your driving school stand out. But if everyone started using Canva and making things look a bit more professional, we might start appearing a little bit more of a professional profession rather than kind of, just a little picture somewhere that looks drabby and nothing done to it. And yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but yeah, I think that's a great shout, Josh. Is there anything else you want to touch on around Canva before we move on?
Yeah, I think we've covered it. You went well in depth with all the different things that there are on Canva. I don't use 90% of what's available on Canva. I open it up, I click at the bottom, create a new, I think it's just a logo that I create, drag and drop some photos onto it or put a text box and some cool pictures around it. And then, yeah, put it out there. And I think creating a brand or at least just some colors or a theme on your social media. And then when people are seeing it regularly, they're going to think of you and it's going to generate some work. We have a lot of content as instructors. We've just sometimes got to use our imagination as to how we can create that content to put it out there.
Yeah. I suppose the only other thing I'd say is the design. So there's loads of templates on there. So if you're not the most creative of people, if you're going to struggle to think of ideas or whatever, there's loads of designs on there that you can just like almost copy and paste or upload and just tweak accordingly. And yeah, it takes a bit of practice if you haven't used it, but I think it's a great one to start. So we've both got Canva there. So we've had yours and mine. So we'll come back to yours. What's your next on your list, Josh?
My next one, a very kind of similar theme for getting our business out there, is GoDaddy. And I don't spend an awful lot of time on there now. I spent maybe 3 to 4 hours, probably 18 months ago now. My timelines are terrible. I spent 3 or 4 hours once upon a time on GoDaddy creating a website that cost me less than £2. So a couple of hours work, less than £2. And I generate with no promotion, no nothing. It's just on there. I get probably 1 inquiry a week from my website. Now, a return on investment, I'm not sure we've got many that are going to be much better than that, getting a client a week from something that cost me £2. That was the domain, that was the website, that was hosting. Now, I expect it's going to cost me a little bit more when it comes to renew, probably 15, 20 quid, whatever it is for the annual hosting. I don't know. You'd have to go and have a look on there. But I think GoDaddy has been really beneficial for my business at a very basic level. I created 3 or 4 pages, drag and drop, and it's constantly generating work.
I like that shout. And I think the thing I would tag in a little bit is not necessarily just GoDaddy. You know, there's Webador and Weebly and Squarespace and all the other stuff that's out there. So I suppose a bit like anything, I would advise instructors to find the one that works for them. But in terms of online tech, I think setting up a website is, well, if you've got the funds, I would advise you to get someone else to do it because it can be quite time consuming and other people can do it better than us. But I've set up my own because I don't have the funds and it, yeah, as you say, it works. People see your website, and it's just such an easier place to send people as well. Because if you're saying like your Facebook page, someone asks you for that, you say, oh, Facebook page, and you've got to say, go search for. Whereas if it's a website, and I just say, oh, go tcdrive.co.uk, you know, or whatever it is, it's easier for people to find that way, or you put it on a business card, or someone can put it on their phone while they're there. And you think of a lot of youth today, I say youth, this applies to me as well. I don't do phone calls. I do text. Someone rings me, the phone gets stared at until they stop ringing, then I'll text them back and ask them what they want. And the youth are like that as well. So the idea of getting that website on there so they could click through a message, I think that's a great shout. Have you encountered any problems or any negatives with it?
No, not any negatives. And I think, like you said, there's so many out there. GoDaddy just for me was the cheapest. And I was like, I'm just going to create a website. I've seen a lot of benefits and what I'd like to talk about, because as you was talking, then I got thinking about the website and I probably need to update it. And this is going off on a tangent a little bit, but a lot of the talk often comes up within the social media world of pricing and how we price as instructors. Now, the way I manage what I do now, I put my prices on my website so anyone can see them. But I used to feel bad when I was quoting my prices to people because I'm like, it's this much per hour. And my thoughts on money at times is that's quite a lot of money for an hour. It's removed that for me when I get the enquiries. Hi, what are your prices? I can now send them the link to my website and then I can have prices set at whatever I want. I have a different pricing structure now to what I used to, but it's just removed a lot of the, I charge this much per hour and almost feeling guilty at times. I did personally. So when I get random enquiries now, rather than a lot of toing and froing, I just send them the link to my website. I'm like, all my information's on here. Prices are on here. Have a look. Either drop me a message or fill in the, whatever the box is that's on my website. And so it's cut a lot of toing and froing messages. So it's almost streamlined my independent business a little bit because I've just got somewhere to send people that are messaging me.
It's interesting you say that because I'm the opposite there, which is unlike me because I like that interaction with a student because I like those early messages because it gives me an opportunity to suss a student out a little bit. And I don't want to work with this person, and I get that feel after a few messages. But I do get what you mean about the prices because it's not always a nice conversation to have. You know, we are a business, we are transactional, we are selling ourselves to a degree, but we're selling our services. So yeah, I can see why that would be a benefit. Just sending someone your page where your prices on or whatever. I can see that'd be good. So, anything else you want to touch on around GoDaddy or websites that might benefit the instructors listening?
No, I think you've covered it about the costing. I think there's definitely a benefit to having a website. I see a lot of people commenting on social media that you don't need a website. And yeah, you probably don't. I didn't have one for the first year or two that I was doing the job. But I do think it can add, like you mentioned about the Canva and the professionalism. If we have a website and it looks somewhat professional, I think it adds credibility to us as instructors. If we are wanting to increase prices or expand or go into other areas, I think a website and that online presence is, why wouldn't you have it? If you can do something for a couple of pounds initially and maybe don't renew if it's costing loads of money, but just get something on there. I can't see the negatives to having that for your business.
No, I'd agree. I think it's not needed, but it's definitely beneficial. Right. I'll move on to my next one then. So I said Canvas. So the one I'm going to chat about next is, and I have spoken about this a little bit before, but it's the ADAS Knowledge Hub. Now, ADAS stands for Automated Driver Assistance System, and I did have to write that down because I always forget. And I just think this is such a wonderful little website. It covers loads of different technology that I didn't know was there for all of it. So I think it's a great resource for driving instructors to go and dig into, to find out the stuff that they didn't know. But I also think it's a great resource to send to our students so that, like for my car, for example, it doesn't have adaptive cruise control. It doesn't have intelligent speed assist. So if I send my students to this website and I give it to them all as a resource, they can go and check and see what else is available. So they've already got a good idea because it breaks it down really well and explains it. And if I can understand what things are as a result of reading this website, anyone will be able to. So I just think this is a cracking resource, and it covers all sorts in there, just to clarify, all kinds of different stuff. So yes, I would highly recommend the ADAS Knowledge Hub. And again, I should just clarify here, all the stuff we're talking about today, I'll include links for in the comments in the blog post on the website. Josh, there you go, on the website. Links will be all there so people can go and find it. But is this something you're aware of, the ADAS Knowledge Hub?
It's not, and you've got me intrigued. You give a bit of information there about like the adaptive cruise control and things like that. So is this specific technology to vehicles, automobile, or is this what is it? What am I going there for?
So essentially, go on the website, and it's got all different kinds of things. So if I'm looking at the website now, I'm looking at the one that says adaptive cruise control, and I'll just click on that where it says find out more. I will do if it would. There we go. Yeah, so basically when it comes up, it's got loads of written information on there. It's got a couple of videos that show you how that adaptive cruise control works. And then there's loads of links to go for further information and stuff like that. So any of that technology. So let me have a look what we've got on here. We've got the anti-lock braking system. We've got brake and emergency brake assist, electronic stability control, autonomous braking, speed assistance, adaptive cruise control, lane departure warnings, steering assist, lane keeping assistance, lane change assist, driver monitoring sensors and cameras, unresponsive driver intervention, e-call, and then there's one on tyres and on back to the ABS there. So loads of stuff covered there, and it gives a real detailed breakdown on how that works so that if there's technology maybe in your car that you don't know how it works, or if there's technology that isn't in your car, so therefore you don't know how that works, you've got a better way to explain it to your students, or you can send it to the students so they can check out as well.
I'm going to have a look at that because in lessons we have conversations. One that stood out was like the electronic stability assist, I think it was. And no, I don't know the ins and outs of that. I'm assuming something like traction control. And when we're in lessons and we're talking about certain things, why we maybe don't want the clutch down going around a corner because certain things won't be working in the car, that's going to help me understand certain parts of the vehicle so that I can then have more in-depth knowledge to help my students. So I like that. That's another place I'm going to spend some time while I'm in my development stage of my career.
Well, I'll mention this now, and yeah, I was debating what to say, but I will. The guys behind it, RoadSafe, I have been trying to get them on the podcast for a long time, and let's just say they are not the best at communicating. So I'm desperate to get them on for this season. In principle, they want to come on for this season, but they are not the best at communicating. So if at the end of this season, RoadSafe hasn't been on, there will be a very, very grumpy Terry. So yes, we'll see what happens for the rest of this season. But it is a brilliant website. Just not always great at replying to emails. But either way, what's next on your list, Josh?
So my next one, I've got two together, and I think the purpose of them remains the same. But I'll go with the first one, and that's the Open University. I've recently found that, and anyone that's following my socials at all will see a couple of the certificates that I've got from there. People have recommended it to me in the past, and I've never really spent much time on there. But a few weeks ago, it took about 5 minutes to create an account, get enrolled on a course, and start a course. It really didn't take long at all. And the amount of courses that are available for free on the Open University is great. And I'm finding the courses quite well as well. There's videos that come with it. There's text, there's little exercises that you can do within the course to try and kind of check your understanding of it. So I'm getting a lot of benefit from being on there and learning about some somewhat random topics, but I find them interesting, emotions and psychology and things like that. So I think that is a great resource if you've got some free time and you want to learn about a topic specific, whether it helps you with this industry or whether it's an interest somewhere else. There's a lot of courses on there for free that you can work through.
A bit of an exclusive coming up, an exclusive on my own podcast that I'm going to mention now. I have roughly 9 weeks to properly apply for my honours degree in history and politics, because I used to want to be a history teacher when I was younger, and I got distracted. So that's potential on the pipeline. Not leaving the industry, just to make this clear, but it'd be like part-time history teacher, part-time driving instructor, part-time podcaster, all that kind of stuff. That's potentially for me next year. So the Open University I'm aware of. I've not done any of your free stuff, so maybe I should go and check that out before committing to a 7-year part-time honours degree course. But yeah, I think that would be a really interesting place to start, because, well, I mean, no offense when I say this to anyone, but I hear a lot of people selling courses and stuff like that. And I look and I think, are they courses? And I'm not meaning to be rude, but you look at a course that you get on Open University, which might be 12 weeks of studying. That to me feels like a course. Whereas when I do a video that I put in my membership, yeah, it's useful. Yeah, you can learn from it. Yes, please come and sign my membership. But it's not a course. That's my video for people to go and watch. And I don't know. I think that this is somewhere you could go to get proper education. Like you say, get those free courses to begin with, and then I suppose you can up the ante and get some proper educational learning. I like that. I think that's a good shout, Josh.
Thank you. And the one link for that before we get onto yours is very much on that same thing of development. And I know we're on a podcast and we want your listeners to stay here, but one that I'm enjoying at the minute is Audible. And for that same reason, I love what everyone's doing within our industry. And in the new year, I'm going to be on the courses because I'm hoping for a standards check at some point. But Audible allows me to delve into certain things that I want to learn about specifically. Again, it's something that's getting me is emotions and psychology. At the minute, I think they're hugely linked to our industry. And I think Audible's great for that. You get, I think it's a credit a month. Don't know how much it costs, but it's under £10, I think, because I'm not sure I'd pay anything more than a tenner at the minute. But yeah, linked with that kind of development and just learning and maybe something outside of the industry, a passion elsewhere, whatever it is. Audible is another one that I'm spending a lot of time on at the minute.
I like Audible. I've had that for a few years. I mean, obviously, I'm an audio guy, so it's my go-to, and I'm in an Audible phase at the minute. I tend to go through phases of podcasts and audiobooks and podcasts and audiobooks, and I'm audio books at the minute. So yeah. So you've cheekily snuck in 2 selections into one there. You've got the Open University and Audible in one selection. See what you've done there.
Sorry, I've got to fit 5 in somehow. So we're going for 5 bands instead of 5 specific things.
The guests on Terry's top 5 play fast and loose with the number 5. I think Sam Harp holds a record for 17. So either way, let's move on to my next one then, because I have got 5. My next one is slightly predictable, but I'm sticking with it, and it's the honest truth, because I think that I'm getting to a point where I'm thinking this is one of, if not the best online resource specifically for driving instructors. I just think that the more I use it, so I started using it a few years ago before it was a proper app. Then I took a little break away from it. Now I'm using it again. And I don't know, something's clicked for me this year with it, that I'm really getting into it, and I'm just seeing some better results. Now, I don't know whether that's because I'm embracing it more, so therefore I'm seeing better results, which is probably the case, or whether something's changed. But in fact, I should just say, because there will be people out there that don't know what the honest truth is. It's basically an app you can get for your phone There's 10 videos on, all committing to a road safety message that they call the truths, and you watch this 2-minute video with your students. I think of it as a conversation starter, but even if they don't have a conversation about it, they're still getting taught this what they call a road safety intervention. They then get an email with that video on and some more data, and they can share it with their family and stuff like that. So I just think it's one of the best things that's come along in our industry. And yeah, massive fan of it. Just today, in fact, I released an episode in the premium that I've started calling Honestly, talking about the honest truth and how we can better use it and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the honest truth, Josh?
I need to put some more time into it. I've signed up. I've got my account. I'll be honest. Because it's an honest truth that we're going for. I don't use it that much at the moment. I need to. I spoke to Ollie, and I know they're constantly updating as well, like you say, about the app that's come out now. So I know about it, know what it is. I need to embrace it more in my lessons and utilize it. The thought that Ollie's got behind it as well, I know you've spoke to him on yours, and I've had him on the podcast. I think it's great, the message that they're sending and how they're connecting to the youngsters. I know some of us still think that we're in our early 20s and relatable, but it's come to my attention a few times that my students see me as an old person. So what I'm saying isn't always relatable to them, but I do know the honest truth kind of use a peer group, don't they? So the message is coming from similar ages.
My student yesterday told me that they were born in 2007, and that's just horrible. Didn't like that at all. And I had one recently where I was talking about Euro 96, which was quite a while ago, but it doesn't feel like a long time ago to me. And they're like, yeah, I wasn't born then. I don't know about that. I'm like, oh, okay. Interesting. But yeah, just to you, Josh, specifically, you're a member of the Instructor Podcast Premium. Go and check out that first episode I put out today. Honestly, that'll help kickstart you with it. But just in terms of the app itself, it is a bit of a game changer. If anyone listens to the Inspiring Instructor Training podcast, they may have heard me relay a story around this recently where there's a video on there about seatbelts. It's a 2-minute video about seatbelts, and we watched that, and the student kind of opened up and said, I probably won't wear my seatbelt when I've passed. And it was like, he wears his seatbelt because he knows I expect him to wear it. So because when he gets in with his parents, when he gets in with me, he just bobs the seatbelt on, no problem. But when he gets in car with his mates, he doesn't, and none of them do. And it was really interesting because we've had several conversations about that. Now, I can't guarantee he'll wear a seatbelt, but he's more likely to wear a seatbelt because of the conversation we've had. And he's admitted that. He said, I'm more likely to wear one now. I don't think he said probably. I think I'm getting him closer to probably. But he's more likely to wear one now. So I wouldn't have had that conversation about seatbelts with him if I hadn't watched that video. And there's other stuff around distracted driving. This one's in my head because it's another one that came up recently with a lad saying that he's concerned about one of his friends because one of his friends is really annoying in the car. And we were talking about how we can manage it and deal with it. And he's now got almost a set of resources that he can help control that situation. And the big one that worked for him, the idea that he came up was simply telling them beforehand. It's like, I'm going to tell them, you dick about in my car, you're not coming in my car. And knowing that he can say that before they get in the car feels like it empowers him to do it when they're in the car. So using the honest truth, like I say, it's a conversation starter, but it's much more than that. I think I probably shouldn't say this, and I'll probably get told off by Ollie Taylor for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. They've got about 600 people signed up now, 600 instructors to this, and Ollie's chuffed with that. And in a way, it should be. I'm disappointed with that. There's 40,000 driving instructors. It's £7.50 a month, and loads of people can get it for free by going to the website and seeing if their area is covered, because certain areas get it for free because of government funding. Some places provide a discount as well. So if you're with certain organisations, I don't know which ones, you'll have to ask. You can get it for £5. And I just feel like it's the most underutilised resource in our industry, as well as being one of the best. But yeah, I'm going to get off my soapbox now. I've had my rant about the honest truth there. Anything you want to add to that, Josh, before we move on?
No, just I need to put time in to get that incorporated in my lessons, because what you said then kind of stood out a little bit, like that chat with the student about the seatbelts. That one person if you can have an effect on that one person and then they get in the car, it's going to remove the peer pressure of no one wearing a seatbelt. If one person's doing it, someone else will be like, well, I might as well chuck mine on. And before you know it, you've now got a car of teenagers all wearing the seatbelt because of just one person that's had the conversation with you.
Well, this is it. It might not be, you might not be able to move that person where you want them on the, like a safety spectrum, if you like, but you might be the person that convinced them not to use their phone while they're driving, or not to have a drink, or not to smoke any, weed or whatever before they drive. You might be able to make that road safety intervention. So even if you can't affect everything, you can affect something, and that could be the thing that saves theirs or someone else's life. But you'll never know that. This is the annoying thing. You'll never know that, but you could be the person that makes that difference. But let's move on to the next one, Josh. And will this be your third? Fourth.
I've got a list so that I can keep on track and not keep throwing. I'm
I've
trying
lost
to
track
keep it to
because-
5.
Yeah, I've lost track because they're flying all over the place now, but go on. And we're just taking a brief pause to give a shout out to a few of our latest sign-ups to the Instructor Premium, and they are James Parsons, Ian Gibson-Gray, and Vicky. Now, these fine folks have decided to upgrade their CPD and become an even more awesome driving instructor with a membership to the Instructor Podcast Premium. Now, they get immediate access to hundreds of hours of video, audio, and written training to help them become even more awesome driving instructors. So whether you're looking to grow your business, become a better instructor, or get some help looking after your mental health and mindset, sign up to the Instructor Podcast Premium. There's currently a 3 weeks trial, or you can get a 16% discount off an annual membership. To find out more, you can use a link in the show notes or head to theinstructorpodcast.com. Now, we also want to take a moment to thank My Drive Time for being sponsors of Season 9 of the Instructor Podcast. One of the excellent features that My Drive Time offer is dynamic reflective logs. Now, these are fully customizable and you can fill them in with your students or encourage them to complete them after the lesson. Either way, I'd encourage you to add a section asking if there was anything you could have done differently as an instructor. Feedback is always a great way to improve. Now, find out more at mydrivetime.co.uk. But for now, let's get stuck back into the show.
So the next one from me is Talking Send with Dr. Julia Malkin, MBE. And this is a fairly new resource for driving instructors. And this is available on Patreon. It's £11 a month plus VAT because Patreon set the prices. And this is lots of short videos, on average between 5 and 10 minutes, just talking about different additional needs. So some examples that we've got on there at the moment are autism, what it is, how it might look in the lesson, how we can help our students who might have autism in the lessons, what we're looking for, how we can help them prepare for a driving test. Then we've got the same with ADHD, the different types of ADHD. And there's a collection now of the additional needs up to dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia. And the reason this has gone out is it's just short videos. If you don't have time to do a course, like you said there about courses and they're weeks long, or you don't have the finances to do a course, then these are just short videos. Maybe you've got a student who's got ADHD and you're noticing things in the lesson. There'll be a short video that might help you understand that student. Or as part of the membership, you can drop a message to Julia, and then there will be a video around that topic on maybe how you can help or what to look for. And I seem to be getting a lot more students with additional needs, and I'm not sure what other instructors are like, but it is on the rise. More people are talking about it, aware of it, getting diagnosed with these different conditions. So this, I think, is a great resource just to hand information to help you with your neurodiverse learners.
I've seen this. I haven't signed up to it yet. It's on my list of things to sign up to because when I find some space, it'll be on there. But Yeah, I think this is one of the things that's lacking in the industry a little bit, because we've got lots of podcasts. Now we've got a growing number of people doing content like Facebook Lives and podcasts and YouTube channels. It's just exploded over the last year with people doing this stuff. I think what it feels is lacking a little bit in the industry at the minute is niche stuff. And I think that's why I'm drawn partly to the Honest Truth, for example, because that's very niche for road safety. And I think I was pleased when I saw this come out, because this is obviously very niche towards send. I think that's what's missing, or what's been missing from the industry, that niche bit. And this is covering the niche of the send, the special educational needs. And I think that it's never going to be the thing that 40,000 people sign up to, because not everyone is working with loads of people with special educational needs. But I think it's more of the thing that's needed in the industry. And, you know, I've got one coming up later on that, again, it's a bit niche. And I like that. I don't want to say excited, but I was a bit excited because it's something new. It's something a little bit different. And I see that much of people doing the same thing of, oh, here's another membership on how to be a better driving instructor, or here's another Facebook Live on Q&A. I really hope no one thinks I'm aiming at them, because I'm not aiming at people individually when I say this. But, you know, here's another Facebook Q&A, here's another Facebook Live, or whatever. And that's why I got excited by this. Like, oh, something a little bit different that's needed. And so, yeah, I think that's a good shout. Anything else you want to tell us on this, Josh, before we move on to my 1, 2, 3, 4th?
It is fairly new. There's quite a comprehensive list of content that's on there now. The purpose and what Julia wants to do is share the message of how we can help these learners. Something that I'm seeing occasionally pop up on social media now, and I think it's becoming more relevant, is since the trigger system's been brought in for driving instructors and the standards check, there does seem to be people becoming a little more concerned of taking neurodiverse learners to the driving test. And part of this membership will help you understand your learners in preparing them for the driving test. So we minimize that. But it's a challenge for those learners to find someone that understands them and can help them. And this is Julia's message, like, get as much information out there so you can understand those learners, so they've got someone to go to. Because learning to drive for those people that maybe aren't as socially accepted or feel like they are, who have social difficulties, getting on a bus, getting public transport can be a bit of a challenge. But getting their driving license is a huge step and a massive leap in independence. So the purpose of it is, yes, understand those needs, but how can you help them learn to drive? What can you do in your lessons? So that's why I think it's relevant to a lot of people, but at the minute, the content is definitely aimed at driving instructors, driving lessons, and helping them understand in the car.
Just admit, I've got so many social difficulties. You should get us to a course on me. That could be the Terry course. I don't know. But yeah, no, I love that you brought that up, and I love that you're involved in it. And like I said, I like that it feels like there's something new that's needed in the industry, especially, and I'll screw it, I'll say the words, especially by someone that knows what they're talking about. So yeah, I like that. But again, it's in its infancy. And I think back to when I started the Instructor Podcast Premium, the first person to ever sign up for the Instructor Podcast Premium was Lee Sperry. And that was run on Patreon. So when I started that, there was a couple of videos on there, a couple of audio files, and that was about it. And it felt like a hard sell because I'd just started it, but it was never, ever meant to be, come in here, there's all this stuff. It was meant to be, come in here, we've got exciting things planned. Is that a little bit of what it's about as well?
Oh, we've got so much more planned with it. And you're exactly right. We've got to start somewhere. And I've not been too clear, but I'm working with Julia on this, helping her with some of the things that are going out. There is a lot planned, and I think there's a huge array of directions that it can be taken. There's a lot to come. At the minute, it's been very specific on the more common additional needs. But yeah, we're looking to get more content out there, potentially things to help instructors as well, because instructors are coming out with these additional needs. ADHD, we've got driving instructors with autism, and Julia, like you said, she knows her things. You're learning from someone who has a doctorate. It's amazing the knowledge that she's got. And that's the plan, is just keep growing it and take it in the direction that the members want it to go. So as a member, you can request where you're struggling. Tell her where you're struggling, and there'll be content to help you understand it. So yeah, lots to come.
I like this. And like for me, I say, using the premium as an example, it's like when I first started that, I was selling it on this exciting stuff is to come. And now I sell on, we've got all this awesome stuff in there, but we've also got this exciting stuff to come. So I'm looking forward to you getting to that point. But if we roll on nicely, segue to my fourth one, because speaking of things in their infancy, my fourth one is CoPilot, which is also in its infancy. Now, for those of you that don't listen, I run a sister podcast of this called Driving Instructors Division Zero. And James Evans was recently on there talking about CoPilot, which is, it's basically Facebook for road safety. And it's such a wonderful resource. Now, look, I will chuck this out there straight away. It is not cheap. The price is 300 quid for a year's membership, and that's 300 quid plus VAT. However, there is a 40% discount for driving instructors. I managed to convince James to throw that out there to get us a 40% discount. So there is a good discount there. I think it works out 18 quid a month, but you do need to pay up front. And I've been playing around on that over the past week or two, and I'm just so impressed. It's a properly put together thing. Like I say, it's like good Facebook for road safety. So there's some awesome trainings in there. Again, it's in its infancy. So you're not going to go in there and see hundreds of hours of stuff. You're going to go in there and see 5, 6. So for example, you've got Laura Laker that's talking about language, distracted driving with Professor Emma Briggs, who some of you may know from the podcast, vehicle technology with Professor Nick Reed. You know, there's all these kinds of people that are doing the trainings. There's networking stuff on there. They've got a proper comprehensive list of events. So for example, I've got my events page on the Instructor podcast, but I have to go and search for those. Their events page is updated by the people that do the events. So it's all updated with good links and stuff like that. Plus, they've got like an ongoing feed and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, I went on there and introduce yourself on the Facebook feed, almost like they've got, and there's people come and say hello and all this kind of stuff. And it's just such a wonderful resource of people and information. And the other thing I'm quite looking forward to that they've just kicked off is something, I forget what they call it now, but it's like Social Fridays. So I think there's an hour or two on a Friday where it's like opens up for everyone to get together for a little online getting to know you session. And again, there's people in there like Dr. Elizabeth Box, James Evans, and, you know, these type of folks. And I love it. I'm absolutely almost addicted to it already. And I think it's got the chance to be something really special. So I would advise any instructor who is in the financial position, because if you're not in a good financial position, don't prioritize this. Just to clarify, prioritize your finances. It is something that's an add-on, if you like. But when you're in the financial position, get your hands on this. Anything you know about this, Josh, or anything you want to ask me about this?
Lots of questions. It's not something I know about. I'm sure I have seen you share posts, because I obviously follow you on social media along with everyone else. I try and keep up with what's going on. So you've mentioned it's like Facebook and there's all these events. Are these events like presentations from the big names that you've mentioned? And are they included in the price? Kind of, how does that work?
Right. So the events are basically just ongoing events in the sector. So there'll be some that are specific or opened up to people in CoPilot. There'll be some that, so for example, like recently we've just had the Road Safety GB conference. So that's been advertised on there with links to get track tickets and stuff. So it's for any road safety event, basically. There will be some that are specific to CoPilot that will be included in the price. There'll be some where CoPilot members can get a discount, but it's just any event within the industry that's just a list. And I just think it's really nice to see a proper, full and comprehensive list on there. So for example, I'm looking on there now and I can see, I won't list all the events, but I'm looking at when I can see Friday the 15th, Tuesday the 19th, Wednesday the 20th, Friday the 22nd, you know, all these dates that most of them won't. be relevant or not relevant. Most of them won't be doable for everyone, but it's just nice to be able to see all that. And this is what I wanted to achieve when I create this events page on the website, but I cannot keep up to date with this. So
Is it aimed at everyone in the road safety sector? Is it aimed at who's their audience? What's the purpose behind all of this?
it is aimed for the road safety sector. So if you're within the road safety sector, that's who it's aimed at. Much like you spoke about with Julia, in the direction of traffic will direct the flow of traffic. It's a bit like that. So if they get flooded with 100 ADIs, they're going to create content for ADIs. If they get flooded with 100 engineers, they're going to create more content from engineers. It's in its infancy, and the members, I didn't create it. I don't want to put words in James' mouth, but it's kind of what he said. And the members will decide where it goes. And the idea is to bring the road safety sector together. And we're part of that. And I think, yeah, again, I'm a week or two into using it, but I'm mightily impressed.
Nice. It sounds interesting. When I do have some free finances available, I'll be looking for this episode and getting on that link on your website.
Check out the Driving Instructor podcast, Driving Instructors Division Zero. There's an episode on there with James Evans. We spoke about it quite a lot, but that was my fourth one. So I'm presuming you're on to your fifth now, your final one.
I am. It is my final one. And this again goes away from the industry, but it's something I see come up quite a lot. And I'm back to now talking about my business and what helps me run my business. I'm going to throw the first bit in, just business banking, but I'm using Starling Bank. And I see this come up a lot on social media. Do I need a business bank? Don't I need a business bank? And a lot of the comments are like, no, you don't need to. You're a sole trader. You can do it through a personal bank. And the benefits I've seen since day one of taking money for a driving lesson, of having that separate business account where it's all in one place, has been great. And I'm going to talk about Starling because that's what I use. And do you use Starling?
No. I will. So I use Lloyd's. I had a business account with Lloyd's. I had an issue. Let's put it that way. But I have a separate account now for all the business stuff. Yeah.
So with Starling Business Bank, what you can do, and I'm sure other banks can, and maybe personal banks can do it, but the way I like doing things, you can create spaces. So it's almost like another account behind your account that your money goes into. So my business account, all my students' money goes in there, and then I can move it into different saving spaces. One of them for my tax that I neglected this year, but that's another story. One of them for car maintenance, one of them for other business expenses. And I just find it really helps me manage my business finances. And then my personal accounts are where my spending money goes. And I know people have got personal preference, but it's an episode on top 5 resources. And I think having Starling as my business bank has been a huge benefit to running my business as an independent driving instructor.
I think me and you could do a bonus bit after this show on Terry and Josh's financial mistakes in 2024. I don't think I have much to add to that, if I'm being honest, because I think that does what it says on its tin. I like that you brought that in. I don't regret not doing it because you have, but I think I would like to have thought that one. I think it's definitely a good show, and I think it's something instructors should be doing to make sure that we're keeping those finances separate because, I made that mistake a few years ago. It was when I first went independent and didn't get the separate account, whether that's business, personal, or whatever. I didn't get a separate account. The money's got tangled. Some of the money got spent. Someone asked for a refund. All of a sudden, I was in a bit of a pickle. And to get it sorted and split so that that money that students might have paid you in advance or whatever is in that separate pot, I think it is a weight off the shoulders. I think when you don't always realize it at the time, but it prevents problems massively. So yeah, good shout. And anything else you want to touch on that before I move on to my final one?
Not really. You've covered it. I think there is maybe a little interject we could do at the end about the finances side of it for those that are in their first year of trading. And that is speak to an accountant and be prepared for on account. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an accountant, but look into what on account is and how your first year's tax works out, because you pay 50% in advance. And yeah, we're on a podcast. I want to help people. It's caught me out a little bit in all honesty, because I've got to pay this year's tax and 50% of next year's tax, because my first 2 years were part-time and it didn't really affect me. Now I've got a full year of earnings. I've got to pay the tax on that, and then 50% of projected for next year. So those that are in the first year of trading, just have a look into it. Don't take my word for it. Maybe have a Google, do your research. I fell short. But back to the point, the business banking has really helped me separate it, like you said. And it's easier. Personal, business, whatever you decide to use, the separation of the two finances has really helped me.
Yeah. Get an accountant. Just get an accountant, whether you've got one like on a monthly fee, or whether you just get one as a one-off to start off with and get some advice. Ask someone in the industry. Dave Shannon is bookkeeper. He's been on the podcast before. He can do the stuff for you. FBTC, that sort of driving instructor specialist accountants, they're the two that come to mind. Just get someone to speak to. Do not rely on, what you think. Do not rely on what people say on Facebook comments, because it applies to one person and their business, it might be slightly different for yours. Just get it from an accountant. That's all I'd say. But yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. So let's move over onto my my fifth. And my fifth is Confident Drivers, Kevin Tracy Field's Confident Drivers. And the reason I wanted to put this in particular is just because it's just so good. I've had them on the podcast before. I think they've been on your podcast, Josh. They're everywhere, right? But it's just so good what they do. And in terms of both for learners and for instructors, the calming nerves, I forget which way around it is, but they've got the course they do for instructors. They've now got their full qualification that they do for instructors, which I haven't done yet, so I can't really comment. But speaking to the people that are taking part on it, it sounds pretty impressive. They've got the learners stuff that they do, and I just think it's just such a good resource that covers everything. I worry about them too sometimes, that they're spreading themselves a little bit thin, because it's just the two of them doing so much. And you turn on Talk TV and they'll be on like with Vanessa, and then they're in the newspaper the next week. And I joke up sometimes about who's the most well-known people in the industry. Those two are the most well-known people outside of the industry, sort of the outside looking in. It's nuts. But yes, I think that's something that every instructor should at the very least check out and see if they can make use of their nerve stuff for them, or whether there's something they can share with their students. Even just a podcast. Their podcast is one that it's been going for years now. They're more consistent with it than anyone else. They're the second most consistent podcast in the industry. The most consistent is Dipod. We're going for like 20 years or something, and they've only missed an episode over COVID. Kevin Tracy Field with the Confident Drivers podcast is like ridiculously confident, ridiculously consistent and confident. And there's just quality stuff out there for learners. It's one that I share with my learners, and I'm very, very selective with the resources. So I feel like I've kind of waffled and gushed over them a little bit there. But yeah, any thoughts on that, Josh?
Yes. When we spoke about doing the top 5 resources, my initial thought went to a bunch of people in the industry that I'm like, these are great. And they was there. I think you spoke about having a niche, and they have many in different fields, and they are spread all over. It's amazing. But when I spoke to them, something that kind of stood out, and I think it does get missed, and their name sums it up, is the confident drivers. The people that have passed that are not confident, when you get people, I've got family members, and when they're ready to go on motorways or drive further afield, I'd be sending them to their website, because there are drivers that are just not confident to go outside of their area. And these guys are specializing in that as well. Like, how do you develop someone that's been driving years on the same roads So yeah, it's for us as instructors and for students and for everything else that they're doing, because they do courses, I think, on neurodiversity as well, if you want to learn about the additional needs. So they've got that. But yeah, the license holders, people that need support who don't know where to turn, confident drivers, because they've got experience in it.
I think the other thing I'll chip in with, you couldn't wish for two nicer people. And there's a lot of people in our industry that try to be very, very careful how I word this, but we're past my cut-off time, Josh. That's the issue.
I've done it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in our industry that aren't necessarily in it for the good of their heart. We're all in to make money. There's no hiding from that. We want to earn a living. But there's some of us that want to earn a living and want to help. And I think it stands out massively with Kevin Tracy Field that's one of those things. They want to help where they can. And so, yeah, I want to chip in with that just to finish off with her. And if I will just say this, Tracy reached out to me recently because I mentioned Kev on another podcast, like almost like a passing mention. And apparently he had a giddy fit when he heard his name mentioned on someone else's podcast. So I'm intrigued to hear how he's responded to this one. But have you got any honourable mentions, or have you managed to cram them all into that?
I wanted to be strict and stick with 5. I've managed to sneak 6 in sneakily. There's one, and this comes back to the business that I wanted to talk about. I've been independent from day one, and there's often questions about how do you get students, how do you do this? And I think with what we've covered, there's some really great resources there for people. But using social media, that's another one that I've got as a reserve. And I think you can start at any point. You can post almost anything on social media, but getting your presence out there. We've done websites, we've done Canva, we've done all of that. But yeah, I think use social media a little bit more, less scrolling and more posting, get yourself out there. If you're needing students, that's where the majority of my work comes from, is consistent posting in the local groups, the local area. So yeah, back to that, building your business, keeping your diary full, use social media, it's free.
I'm not going to talk about social media because I'll talk about it enough and we'll do another 20 minutes. But I am going to mention one other thing, because there's this one other particular thing that I was debating putting it into this top 5, and that's my drive time. And I think maybe people are wondering why you haven't, potentially. But full transparency, the reason I haven't is because they're sponsoring the show, so they get an advert at the start, an advert in the middle, an advert at the end. So they don't need an extra advert in my top 5. But, I think they would have been in there. I'm not going to say who would have taken out, by the way, but they would have been in there if they'd not sponsored the show. But they're getting mentioned anyway. So, yeah, quick rundown of your top 5, Josh. What recap your top 5 for me?
So we had Canva, GoDaddy, Open University, Audible, Personal Development, Talking Send with Dr. Julia Malkin, Business Banking. I said Starling, but maybe based on what we spoke about, just separate bank accounts, personal, business, whatever you decide to do, however you do it, just separate accounts. And then utilizing social media to help build your business, get your students, keep you busy. They were my 5/6 or 7 that I managed to sneak in. What about yours, Terry? Where are we at with yours?
Mine was the ADAS Knowledge Hub, The Honest Truth, Canva, CoPilot and Confident Drivers. So, 10 to 12 awesome resources that we've discussed there. So loads more online resources. So if we have missed any that you're particularly annoyed about, the comments will be open on Spotify and on other social media. But I just want to take a moment to thank you for joining us, Josh. And do you want to remind everyone where they can find anything you might have to offer?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm at the minute, so I'm working with Julia over on Talking Send with Dr. Julia Malkin. You can find that on Facebook and on Patreon, so a bit of time there. I occasionally use the Mirrors Signal podcast page, so I am still posting on there, trying to keep up to date with everything on there, and it will be back. When we'll figure that out, but it will be back. And just on my socials, type my name in on Facebook, give me a friend request. I post the odd thing, share what people are up to. And yeah, that's me at the minute. I'll be giving you a shout at some point when the podcast is back, Terry, hopefully in the new year at some point.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
So a big thank you to Josh for joining me today. It was fun speaking to Josh. We've not spoke for a while, and good hearing that he's planning to come back with his podcast, Mirror Signal Podcast. Find links to that in the show notes, or just search for Mirror Signal Podcast on YouTube or podcast apps. And I'm looking forward to Josh getting back on track with that. And I hope you've got some ideas from today's top 5. I do just want to clarify, these aren't necessarily what we would say are the best 5, because I'll be honest, since I've done this, I thought even more. But they're 5 that you can find useful, and there was sort of 10, 12 overall that we mentioned, and you can find all of them useful to help you with your driving school, with your online resources. So definitely go and check them out. And as I mentioned during the recording, my drive time would have been in there because I think they're a tremendous resource. I'm super grateful they're sponsoring the show, and I would really advise you go and check them out at mydrivetime.co.uk. If you've got any questions, reach out to them. They'll happily have a chat with you and walk through what's available, or just sign up and see how you go. You may like it, you may not. I'm sure you will. Give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? I also want to take a moment, as I said at the start of the show, to remind you that it is Road Safety Week. Now, this is run by Brake, who they're essentially a charity that help people who have had family members die as a result of a crash. And they don't get any government funding. Everything they do is either voluntary or raised through donations. And that's what I'm doing at the Instructor podcast across this week. I'm trying to raise money. I'm trying to raise £1,683 to give to Brake. Now, me personally, I'm going to be doing the Brake Challenge. I'm walking 5 kilometres a day across this week. Considering I've just broken my Fitbit, it's not got off to the best of starts, but I'm going to be raising money personally. I'm hoping to raise a bit of money through my driving school. I'm doing a raffle and a couple of other bits I've got going on there. But I'm also hoping to raise money through the podcast. If you are raising money, you can donate directly into the Instructor Podcast Just Giving page. Or if you're not raising money, but you want to donate, you can do that as well. What I will point out is there's 40,000 driving instructors. If 100 of us raise £16.83, we would hit that target. So we just need 100 of 40,000. And there's going to be somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people that listen to this show. So all we need is somewhere around about 10% of this audience, perhaps, and we'll be away. We'll get that money. So consider doing it. Like, look, life is difficult at the minute, cost of living, all that stuff. So please don't feel obliged. You have to prioritize you and your finances over helping others with charity. But if you can find a way to raise or spare £16.83, that'd be awesome. But as I said, please don't feel obliged. And the best way to donate is go to theinstructorpodcast.com. There's a big red button up at the top that'll say something along the lines of donate here. Go and click that. And when you've done that, have a look through the website. You may find something that helps you. But for now, let's just keep raising standards.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook. Talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.